The Silent Chains, 10 Stoic Secrets to Breaking the Habits That Weaken You. Have you ever felt it? That profound, almost imperceptible sense that you are a participant in your own life, but not its author. You move through your days with a sense of duty, fulfilling obligations, managing tasks, and navigating the complex web of social expectations. You work, you provide, you laugh at the appropriate times, and you reply to messages with the expected emojis. On the surface, everything appears to be in order. Yet, in the quiet solitude of your own mind, a different story unfolds. It's a whisper, a persistent, nagging question that surfaces when the noise of the world finally fades. Where am I truly going? And why does it feel like I'm running in place? This feeling isn't the result of a catastrophic failure or a dramatic betrayal. No external force is holding you down, no singular villain is plotting your demise. The architect of this quiet dissatisfaction is far more intimate, far more subtle. It is the accumulation of small, silent habits, the seemingly insignificant choices you make 100 times a day. These are the habits no one warns you about, the ones that masquerade as convenience, as social grace, or even as prudence. They are the invisible threads that, over time, weave themselves into the very fabric of your being, creating a tapestry of a life lived at half-mast. They are the slow, methodical erosion of your willpower, the gentle dimming of your spirit, the gradual pulling away from the shores of the person you once, with fierce conviction, dreamed of becoming. You feel it as a dull ache, a sense of being perpetually behind, even when you're working your hardest. You sense it as a growing emptiness, even when your calendar is full. This video is not intended to be another fleeting injection of feel-good motivation. It will not offer you a temporary high or a quick fix. Instead, consider this a mirror, held up to reflect the unvarnished truth of your daily existence. It is a wake-up call, a gentle but firm shake to rouse you from the slumber of unconscious living. Together, we will drag into the light the 10 most pervasive and weakening habits that hold modern individuals captive. We will dissect them, understand their insidious nature, and, most importantly, arm you with the timeless wisdom to break their chains for good. Our guide on this journey is a philosophy forged in the crucibles of ancient empires, tested on the battlefields of war, and whispered in the halls of power. It is Stoicism. This is not a philosophy of rigid denial or emotionless detachment. It is the philosophy of the unshakable soul. It is the art of building an inner citadel, a sanctuary of calm and clarity that stands resolute amidst the chaos of the external world. It is the science of living with purpose, of acting with discipline, and of reclaiming your sovereign power from the thousand trivialities that clamor for your attention. If you have ever felt a stirring within you, a deep-seated knowing that you were meant for more than this hollow rush of days, then I urge you to stay. This is more than a mere list of prohibitions. This is your personal declaration of war against a life of quiet desperation. This is your invitation to begin the sacred work of living deliberately. The journey begins now. 1. The subtle poison of mockery and the illusion of superiority. Let us begin with a scene you have undoubtedly witnessed, perhaps even participated in. A group of friends gathered around a dinner table. The conversation flows, laughter is shared, and then, one person, with a wry smile, delivers a subtle jab disguised as humor. So, they say, their voice laced with feigned concern, still navigating the exciting world of unemployment. A nervous chuckle ripples through the group. The target of the remark forces a smile, their own discomfort masked by a veneer of good sportsmanship. Or consider the digital arena. You scroll through your social media feed and pause on a friend's photograph. They look happy, confident. Instead of a simple gesture of support, you feel an impulse, a flicker of something sharp, and you type a comment, "Wow, you're actually making an effort to dress well for once." You add a winking emoji to soften the blow, to frame it as banter. This brand of interaction is pandemic in our culture. We label it as teasing, as friendly rivalry, as simply, the way we are. But let us be brutally honest with ourselves. Let us, for a moment, strip away the social justifications and examine the raw mechanics of this behavior. Each time you engage in such an act, what are you truly doing? You are attempting to build a pedestal for your own ego, and the bricks and mortar of this pedestal are the fractured confidence and subtle hurt of another human being. You are trying to feel taller by making someone else feel smaller. The problem, as any Stoic would tell you, is that this pedestal is a precarious structure. It is built on a foundation of rubble, of insecurity, of comparison, of a desperate need for validation. It is unstable, it is ugly, and it is destined to crumble, leaving you not elevated, but standing amidst the debris of your own making. This is not the behavior of the strong. The truly powerful, the individuals who possess a deep and abiding sense of self-worth, have no need to diminish others to feel secure. This is the strategy of the insecure, the desperate gambit of a mind that is deeply, painfully, at war with itself. It is a desperate attempt to measure one's own worth not by an internal standard of virtue, but by the perceived shortcomings of others. Ask yourself this piercing question: if your confidence is contingent upon another's belittlement, is it truly confidence at all? Or is it a fragile, fleeting illusion, a ghost that requires the constant sacrifice of another's dignity to maintain its form? The consequences of this habit extend far beyond the fleeting sting of a single remark. Consider the words of a child, a fifth grader who confides, "I don't dare read aloud in class anymore. Every time I stumble on a word, they laugh." That laughter, which may have begun as an innocent, thoughtless joke, over time calcifies into a wall. It is a wall that isolates, that stifles, that blocks the path of growth. And do not for a moment believe that we outgrow this behavior. Adults still laugh, they still criticize, they simply do so with more polished language and in more sophisticated settings, in boardrooms, at family gatherings, and behind the anonymous veil of a keyboard. They wear suits, they hold degrees, but the fundamental mechanism of the damage remains the same. It creates a culture of pretense, a world where everyone is terrified to make a mistake, to appear foolish, to be vulnerable. It fosters an environment where no one feels safe enough to be their authentic self. Now, turn the mirror inward. Are you, in any way, a contributor to this culture of fear? The great Stoic teacher Epictetus offered a radical antidote to this poison. In his discourses, he advises, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. This is a profound liberation. The individual who is genuinely committed to growth does not fear being underestimated. They do not feel the need to broadcast their intelligence or to prove their superiority by highlighting the flaws of others. Their sense of worth is not derived from the opinions of the crowd but is grounded in the unwavering soil of their own internal values. They are building a fortress from within, not a pedestal from the rubble of others. I invite you to undertake a simple, yet profoundly transformative, exercise. For the next 7 days, become a vigilant observer of your own speech. The next time you feel the impulse to drop a sarcastic comment, to make a cutting joke at someone's expense, or to offer a backhanded compliment, pause. In that sacred pause, ask yourself a single, honest question: what is the true motivation behind this impulse? If the answer does not spring from a place of genuine kindness, from a sincere desire to connect, or from a constructive intent to help, then let the words die on your tongue. Choose silence. Understand that in holding back that single mocking remark, you are not merely sparing another's feelings, you are holding on to your own peace. You are refusing to poison your own soul with the cheap thrill of a hollow victory. And what if you find yourself on the receiving end of such a remark? Here too, you have a choice. The instinct is to react, to defend, to retaliate. But the Stoic path is different. Treat that moment not as an attack, but as an opportunity for training. It is a chance to practice the virtue of calm. Imagine yourself as a warrior, standing firm and centered in the face of a blustering wind, rather than being drawn into a chaotic brawl. Your non-reaction is not a sign of weakness, it is a demonstration of immense strength. It silently communicates that their words have no power over your inner state. For a more practical, long-term approach, I suggest a journaling practice. For 1 week, keep a small notebook. Every time you catch yourself entertaining a thought of mockery or criticism towards another, write it down. Note who it was about, the situation, and most importantly, what you were feeling in that moment. Were you feeling insecure? Jealous? Bored? At the end of the week, read your entries. You will likely discover a startling pattern. Your reactions were not truly about the other person's perceived weakness. They were a reflection of your own inner imbalance, your own unexamined insecurities. And once you see that pattern with unflinching clarity, you are no longer its slave. You can consciously, deliberately, choose a different path. Choosing to abstain from mockery is not about a saccharine, superficial niceness. It is a profound act of self-liberation. It is about freeing yourself from the exhausting, unending, and ultimately meaningless game of winning every conversation, of needing to be the smartest, wittiest person in every room. You do not need to prove your worth. You need to embody it. Be the person whose presence does not cause others to shrink, but allows them to expand. The moment you make the conscious decision to act with a foundational kindness, to interact from a place of respect even when no one is watching or demanding it of you, you step into a new realm of personal power. This power, a quiet, steady force, begins to express itself not just in your words, but in your presence, your choices, and your fundamental orientation to the world. And this leads us directly to the next critical pillar of a strong life, responsibility. For if you are not in sovereign control of your own inner world, you will forever be searching for external forces to blame for your dissatisfaction. And when that happens, you become a rudderless ship, tossed about by the whims of others, drifting aimlessly on the chaotic seas of life, never charting a course to the destination you secretly, deeply, long to reach. 2. The self-imposed prison of blame. Observe the modern landscape of human complaint. A man stands before his bathroom mirror, his reflection showing a life out of alignment. His belly is soft and distended, dark circles of exhaustion are etched beneath his eyes, and the specter of unfinished work looms over his shoulder. He lets out a heavy sigh, a sound of resignation, and mutters to the reflection, "It's just my genetics. It runs in the family." In another scene, a young woman is sprawled on her couch, her face illuminated by the cold, blue light of her phone. Her thumb scrolls mechanically through a curated feed of other people's triumphs, and a bitter smile touches her lips. "They're just lucky," she murmurs to the empty room. "They had more opportunities, a better start." Elsewhere, a college student, having just missed a critical deadline, rationalizes his failure to a friend, "The professor is so disorganized. He never even reminded us." These phrases, these quiet soliloquies of blame, seem harmless, don't they? They are the common currency of our daily conversations, the socially acceptable ways we absolve ourselves of discomfort. But make no mistake. These are not harmless words. They are the very first bricks being laid in the construction of a prison. A prison we build for ourselves, a fortress of irresponsibility where we are both the inmate and the warden. In the stark, clear, and uncompromising worldview of the Stoics, the act of blame has no place. It is seen as a form of intellectual and spiritual poison. The Stoics did not believe in a capricious universe that singles out individuals for misfortune. They did not rail against the unfairness of fate. They believed, with an unshakable conviction, in a single, powerful truth: responsibility is the bedrock of a virtuous life, and it begins and ends within the confines of your own mind. Epictetus, a man who was born a slave and rose to become one of the most revered philosophical teachers of his time, stated it with piercing clarity: "No man is free who is not master of himself." This is not a poetic flourish. It is a diagnostic tool. If you do not exercise sovereign control over how you live, how you think, and how you react to the events of your life, then your proclaimed freedom is nothing more than a grand illusion. You are a puppet, and your strings are being pulled by your circumstances, your past, and the actions of others. Have you ever noticed the profound correlation? The individuals who are most adept at the art of blaming are almost always the ones who change the least. There is a simple, causal reason for this. So long as you are convinced that the root of your problems lies somewhere out there, in the economy, in your upbringing, in the actions of your partner, in the unfairness of your boss, you will never undertake the difficult, necessary work of looking inward. You will never get to the true source of the issue. You become like a driver who, after crashing his car, spends all his energy blaming the pothole in the road or the sudden downpour of rain, but never once stops to ask the critical question, was I, perhaps, falling asleep at the wheel? Let us bring this down to a concrete, everyday example. You are late for an important meeting. The immediate, reflexive response is to curse the traffic. It is an easy, external target. But if you were to practice a moment of radical honesty, you would be forced to follow the chain of causation backward. You would remember that you hit the snooze button not once, but 3 times this morning. You would recall that you chose to watch one more episode on Netflix last night instead of getting the restorative sleep you knew you needed. You would have to admit that you spent 20 minutes scrolling through your phone in bed before finally, reluctantly, preparing for your day. Each of these small choices, these seemingly random and insignificant decisions, are not random at all. They point directly to a deeply ingrained pattern, a habit of avoiding responsibility, of outsourcing the cause of your own life's friction. So, I offer you a challenge. The very next time something goes wrong in your day, no matter how small, resist the urge to blame. Instead, I want you to practice what I call the sacred pause. In your mind, press a large, red stop button. And in the silence that follows, instead of formulating your external excuse, I want you to ask yourself one question: what part of this outcome was a direct result of my own choices or inactions? That single question, asked with sincerity and courage, is a key. It is the key that unlocks the door to a different world, a world where you are no longer a passive victim of life's events, but the active, empowered protagonist of your own story. There is a reason we are so drawn to the act of blaming, a reason that few people are willing to admit to themselves. Blaming feels good. In the moment, it is a comforting act of self-soothing. It is like wrapping yourself in a warm, soft blanket of excuses, a blanket that shields you from the harsh glare of your own helplessness and absolves you of the burden of taking action. But you must understand this: every time you pull that blanket a little tighter, every time you retreat into its comforting darkness, you are dimming your own inner light. You are trading a moment of comfort for a lifetime of mediocrity. If you truly desire change, do not wait for a surge of motivation or a bolt of inspiration. These are fleeting and unreliable allies. Instead, take the smallest possible action that is within your sovereign control, right now. Instead of complaining about the mess in the kitchen, wash a single dish. Instead of groaning when the alarm clock rings, simply swing your legs out of bed and place your feet on the floor. Instead of cursing the morning heat on your commute, leave your house 15 minutes earlier. Do not dismiss the power of these infinitesimally small decisions. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, reminded himself in his private journal, Meditations, to build your life action by action. These tiny acts of responsibility are the seeds from which the mighty oak of a virtuous and self-directed life grows. They are the roots of real freedom. And if you find yourself standing at the precipice of this change, questioning whether you have the strength to take full responsibility for everything in your life, remember this: no one is asking you to carry the weight of the entire world on your shoulders. The Stoics are simply asking you to begin with the one thing you can, and must, claim ownership of: your own life. Because it is a fundamental law of the universe that only when you truly own something, do you earn the right to change it. And once you take that first, courageous step onto the path of responsibility, you will make a startling discovery. You will realize that your weakness does not stem from your failures. It has always stemmed from your fear of failure, a fear so profound that you have refused to even look it in the eye. But failure, as you are about to learn, was never the enemy you believed it to be. It is the most challenging, most relentless, and most necessary teacher you will ever have. 3. The misunderstood virtue of failure. There exists a category of failure that is rarely discussed, a failure that leaves no visible scars and elicits no sympathy from the outside world. It is a quiet, insidious failure, the failure that arises not from attempting something and falling short, but from not daring to attempt at all. It happens in the silent moments of hesitation, in the countless opportunities that are allowed to pass by, cloaked in the guise of caution and prudence. There is no dramatic collapse, no public humiliation, no tears. And yet, this is the most destructive failure of all, for it leaves a slow, spreading crack in the very foundation of the soul. It is the student who possesses a brilliant mind but refuses to sit for the final examination, whispering to themselves, "But what if I don't achieve a perfect score?" It is the friend who holds back a heartfelt confession of love, paralyzed by the thought, "What if I ruin the friendship we already have?" It is the aspiring entrepreneur with a groundbreaking idea who never writes the first line of their business plan, tormented by the question, "But what if I'm not capable of seeing it through?" You will never see these individuals lose in the conventional sense. But if you observe their lives closely, you will notice a strange and tragic pattern: they never, ever win either. The Stoic philosophers, men who navigated the treacherous waters of Roman politics, the brutality of the battlefield, and the whims of tyrannical emperors, never viewed failure as the enemy. To them, failure was an inevitability of the human condition, a natural part of the texture of existence. It was something to be endured, much like a soldier learns to stand firm in a hailstorm. Not because the experience is pleasant, but because some things in life cannot be dodged or outmaneuvered. They can only be faced with courage, with dignity, and with the unwavering resolve to learn. Seneca, a man who was an advisor to the Emperor Nero and who ultimately was forced by that same emperor to take his own life, wrote a line in his letters that should be engraved upon your heart: "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." This is a statement of profound and practical wisdom. We all desire to shine, to exhibit our inner brilliance, but we flee at the first sign of friction, at the first scratch upon the surface of our ego. What sense does this make? We want the reward of strength without being willing to endure the process that forges it. Observe a toddler learning to walk. It is a masterclass in resilience. They pull themselves up, take a wobbly step, and inevitably, they fall. They often fall hard. And what is their reaction? Do they lie on the floor and conclude that walking is simply not for them? No. More often than not, they laugh, they push themselves back up, and they try again. Not a single child in the history of the human race has ever quit learning to walk after their first fall. They are not yet burdened by the fear of looking foolish. But as we grow older, we learn to fear. And here we uncover a strange and tragic paradox of modern life. The more educated, the more accomplished, and the more successful we become by society's standards, the more terrified we are of failure. Our ego, which has been carefully constructed and polished over years, cannot bear the thought of being seen as foolish or incompetent. We become like the adult at a wedding who refuses to step onto the dance floor, rationalizing, "I'll look ridiculous." But it is this very refusal, this retreat from the possibility of looking foolish, that makes one's life smaller, more constricted, and ultimately, more ridiculous. I ask you to reflect on your own life. Think back to the last time you learned something truly important, something that fundamentally changed you as a person. When was the last time you mastered a new skill, overcame a significant challenge, or developed a new level of understanding? Now ask yourself, did you achieve this without first making a mistake? Without stumbling? Without, at some point, failing? The chances are close to zero. Mistakes are the tuition we pay for the education of experience. They are the most expensive, but also the most effective, classrooms in the world. The only real question is this: are you willing to pay the price of admission? Let me tell you a story about a man we'll call Nam. Nam is a talented individual, and on some level, he knows he has a gift for writing. He can craft beautiful sentences and articulate complex ideas with a rare clarity. But whenever a friend or a colleague encourages him to share his work, to submit an article, or to start a blog, he always retreats behind the same shield: "I'm not good enough yet. I need more time to practice." 3 years pass. Nam can still be found in the same corner of the same coffee shop, writing insightful posts that only he will ever read. Then, one rainy afternoon, as he stares out the window, a crushing realization descends upon him. He is not behind in his career because others are more talented. He is not stuck because the world is unfair. He is behind because he never had the courage to join the game in the first place. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, whose work was deeply influenced by the Stoics, once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." This is a powerful sentiment. But what is often overlooked is that in order to discover your why, you must sometimes be willing to walk directly into situations where failure is not just a possibility, it is a statistical necessity. So, what is the call to action? It is simple and direct. Today, not tomorrow, not next week, I want you to choose one thing you have been avoiding out of a fear of failure, and I want you to do it. Send the draft of that email you've been perfecting for days. Make the apology you know you need to make. Launch the small online store you've been dreaming about. Post something honest and vulnerable on your social media. Do it. I implore you, release yourself from the tyranny of perfection. What you need right now is not a flawless outcome. What you need is momentum. Ask yourself this question: do you want your life to be a pristine, unblemished film that is full of cuts, a series of scenes that were abandoned because you were not yet ready? Or do you want your life to be a raw, messy, flawed, and authentic story, a story so real and so vivid that no one, including yourself, can look away? If you are brave enough to choose the latter, then you are ready to confront another, equally insidious, enemy of a well-lived life, the meaningless rules and social scripts you follow, day after day, simply to be accepted. I will meet you there, at the gateway to a more authentic existence. 4. The gilded cage of social conformity. Have you ever found yourself at a social gathering, a party, or a networking event, where the conversation is mind-numbingly dull, yet you maintain a polite, engaged smile, nodding along as if you are captivated? Have you ever sat in a corporate meeting, listening to a strategy proposed by your superior that you know, with every fiber of your being, makes absolutely no logical sense, yet you remain silent, or worse, you nod in agreement? In these moments, we often tell ourselves a comforting story. We are being adaptable. We are being team players. We are skillfully navigating the complex currents of social and professional life. But if we were to be radically honest, we would have to admit that we are doing something far more significant. We are paying a tax, and the currency of this tax is our own authenticity. Each time we engage in these small acts of self-silencing, we are trading a piece of our soul for the fleeting comfort of social acceptance. This habit, the habit of submitting to meaningless norms, of adhering to social scripts that violate our own inner truth, is a form of self-imprisonment. It is a gilded cage. There are no iron bars, no locked doors. The only constraints are the perceived gaze of others and our own deep-seated fear of being ostracized, of being left out in the cold. Imagine a simple thought experiment. You step into a crowded elevator. Instead of turning to face the doors like everyone else, you deliberately turn and face the back wall. What would happen? You would be met with a barrage of confused stares, uncomfortable shifts, and perhaps even a few nervous whispers. You would feel an intense, almost overwhelming, pressure to conform, to turn back around and align yourself with the group. That palpable discomfort is the invisible force that keeps us in line in countless areas of our lives. And so, we learn to modulate our true opinions, to express only those ideas that are safe and widely accepted. We learn to dress in a way that is neutral and inoffensive. We learn to curate a public persona that is likable, agreeable, and ultimately, a pale and diluted version of our true selves. But the Stoics did not teach us to live a life that is safe enough. They taught us to live a life of integrity, a life where our outer actions are in perfect harmony with our inner values. A friend of mine provides a poignant example. He spent 5 grueling years of his life climbing the corporate ladder in a prestigious law firm, relentlessly pursuing a partnership that he never, in his heart, truly wanted. Why did he do it? He did it because it made his parents proud. He did it because it earned him the respect and admiration of his friends. He did it because it was the definition of success that society had handed to him. And when, after a profound personal crisis, he finally mustered the courage to quit, he made a startling discovery. All of that hard-won respect, all of that external validation, vanished almost overnight. Do you see the tragic irony? We sacrifice who we are in order to gain the approval of others, only to realize in the end that the approval was never truly for us in the first place. It was for the mask we were wearing. Marcus Aurelius, in the quiet solitude of his tent on the battlefront, wrote a line in his meditations that cuts through the noise of social pressure like a razor: "The opinion of 10,000 men is of no value if none of them know anything about the subject." I urge you to read that again and let its meaning sink in. 10,000 opinions, 10,000 likes, 10,000 shares, they are all utterly meaningless if not one of those individuals understands the true context of your life, your values, and your purpose. So why would you choose to live your one precious life under the tyranny of their uninformed gaze? I offer you a simple, practical tool to begin dismantling this cage. The next time you find yourself about to say yes to a request, an invitation, or an idea, I want you to implement the sacred pause. In that moment of silence, ask yourself this question: if no one in the world would ever know that I did this, would I still choose to do it? That small question, that tiny, deliberate pause, can be your first courageous step out of a life of quiet submission and into a life of authentic action. And if the thought of being judged, of being misunderstood, or even of being excluded, fills you with fear, that is a valuable piece of data. It suggests that you are likely living within a culture, be it your family, your workplace, or your social circle, that rewards pretense and punishes authenticity. But remember the great moral and spiritual teachers of history. Jesus was not crucified for saying what was popular or palatable. He spoke a truth that was deeply uncomfortable to the established order. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Romans, implored his followers, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." The ultimate problem is not the existence of the crowd. The problem is when you look in the mirror and you no longer recognize the person staring back at you. If you do not consciously and deliberately break this habit of conformity, you will wake up one day, perhaps decades from now, and realize that you have been living your entire life inside someone else's skin. You will have been polite, you will have been likable, you will have been well received. But you will not have been you. So, right now, I challenge you to choose one thing, just one, that you do solely to fit in, and make the decision to stop. It could be as small as declining an invitation you don't want to accept, or as significant as expressing a dissenting opinion in a meeting. Don't apologize for it. Don't feel the need to offer a lengthy explanation. Simply act in accordance with your own inner truth and observe what happens. You will discover that the world does not, in fact, collapse. But you will feel something within you start to rise. A sense of solidity. A sense of self. And here is the secret that the Stoics understood so well. When you begin to cultivate this inner strength, when you start to rise from within, the first and most immediate transformation does not occur in your mind. It occurs in your body. Because the body is incapable of lying. It is a faithful and honest mirror of your inner state. It reveals your weakness or your strength far more eloquently than your words ever could. And that is when you must learn to teach your body to speak the same language as your renewed mind, to embody strength, to reflect your newfound freedom, and to occupy the space you were always meant to fill. 5. The unspoken language of a weakened body. Picture this scene. A man steps into an elevator. He doesn't stride in, he almost seems to seep in, as if trying to minimize his own physical presence. He immediately retreats to a corner, tucking himself away from the center. His eyes are cast downward, fixated on the scuffs of his own shoes. His hands are clasped in front of his stomach, a subconscious gesture of self-protection. No one in the elevator speaks a word, but his body is screaming a message, and the message is this: I am not important. I am not a threat. Please, do not notice me. Now, imagine the same elevator, the same man. But this time, he steps in and plants his feet firmly in the center of the space. He stands tall, his shoulders are back and relaxed, and his gaze is directed straight ahead. He is not being aggressive or flashy. He is simply present, occupying his space without apology. Again, no one speaks a word. But this time, you sense something entirely different. You sense an aura of control, of quiet confidence. This is a person who is comfortable in his own skin. The twist in this story is that it could be the very same person on two different days. The only variable that has changed is how he has chosen to hold himself, how he has chosen to communicate with the world through the silent, powerful language of his body. The concept of weak body language has very little to do with your physical stature. It is not about being short or tall, slim or heavy. It is about a fundamental, often unconscious, posture towards the world. It is about whether you are constantly, subtly, asking for permission to exist. Many of us move through our lives as if we are renters in our own bodies, as if our very presence is an inconvenience to others. We signal this in 1,000 small ways. We offer nervous, self-deprecating laughs. We physically shrink ourselves in meetings, pulling our arms and legs in close. We lower our voices at the end of a sentence, turning a statement into a question, as if seeking validation for our own thoughts. But an individual who has internalized the principles of Stoicism does not do this. They are not arrogant, for arrogance is its own form of weakness, a desperate cry for attention. They are, to use a simple but profound word, present. They understand the wisdom in Marcus Aurelius's private reminder to himself: a man must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. This is a call to cultivate an inner strength so solid that it naturally manifests in an upright, grounded physical posture. You stand tall not as a performance, but because your will, your very soul, is standing tall within you. Take a moment for a self-audit. Pay attention to what your body does when you are feeling defeated, discouraged, or anxious. For most people, the physical response is reflexive and predictable. The shoulders slump forward, the chest caves in, the neck pulls in like a turtle retreating into its shell. You find yourself staring at your phone, not out of interest, but as a shield, a way to avoid eye contact with the world. No one has to instruct you to do this. It is the natural, physical expression of a mind that is in a state of retreat. But here is the profoundly empowering part of this equation. This reaction is not a one-way street. It is entirely reversible. You can consciously, deliberately, shift your posture, and in doing so, you can actually shift your mood and your mindset. This is not some cheap, pop psychology trick. This is a fundamental principle of neurobiology. The connection between your body and your mind is a two-way feedback loop. Your posture is, in a very real sense, a mental switch. Imagine yourself in a common scenario. You are at a lunch with your colleagues. The conversation is lively, but you feel hesitant to contribute. You find yourself hunching your shoulders, making yourself small, silently broadcasting the message, "Please don't call on me." Or you walk into an important meeting, and your hands immediately find their way into your pockets, your eyes darting around, avoiding a direct gaze. You are standing in line at a coffee shop, but your attention is glued to the floor. You may not be a weak person, but you are rehearsing the role of one. And the psychological truth is that the more you rehearse a role, the more it becomes your reality. So, how do you begin to break this deeply ingrained pattern? The solution is beautifully simple and requires no expensive workshops, no lengthy meditation sessions, and no self-help books. Just pick an ordinary, mundane moment from your day. It could be the moment you order your morning coffee. It could be the moment you walk into a meeting. It could be the moment you are waiting for the bus. In that moment, make a conscious choice. Lift your head. Gently pull your shoulders back and let them relax. Plant your feet on the ground as if you have a right to be there, as if you intend to stay. Do not let your eyes dart around nervously, and for the love of all that is good, do not hide behind the screen of your phone. If making this small adjustment feels uncomfortable, even a little bit artificial at first, that is a very good sign. It means you are actively breaking a habit, a neurological pattern that has been holding you in a state of self-limitation for far too long. Are you surprised by this? We often think that meaningful change must begin in the murky, abstract depths of our psyche. But sometimes, the most profound transformation begins with the simple, concrete alignment of your own shoulders. A collapsed body cannot possibly house a strong and resilient spirit. So, I invite you to pause, right now, as you are reading these words. Become aware of your own posture. Where are your shoulders? Is your neck tensed and pulled forward, as if you are bracing for an impact? Are you, in some subtle way, asking the world for permission to disappear? If the answer is yes, then gently, deliberately, adjust. Not for the benefit of anyone else who might be watching. Do it for you. Because in this moment, and in every moment to follow, you are in need of a leader, someone to guide you towards a stronger, more authentic version of yourself. And that leader is you. Thank you for your attention and for sticking with me on this journey. The fact that you are still here, still engaged, tells me something important about you. You are not a passive consumer of content. You are someone who is genuinely seeking change. And I assure you, every part of this video is a key, designed to unlock a different door within you. If what you are hearing resonates on a deep level, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Not for the sake of numbers, but as a personal commitment, a promise to yourself to continue this vital work. Stick with me. We are only just getting started. 6. The modern sickness of disguised laziness. You tell your friends, "I've been so busy lately." But if you were to conduct an honest audit of your day, you would find that you just spent a full hour scrolling through an endless feed of cute cat videos and political arguments with strangers. You tell your partner, "I just haven't had the time to go to the gym." But last night, you binge-watched 4 consecutive episodes of a television series, a series whose plot you can barely recall this morning. This is the face of laziness in the 21st century. It no longer looks like a person lying idly on a couch, staring at the ceiling. Modern laziness is far more insidious. It wears a t-shirt, it opens a laptop, it sits upright at a desk, and it expertly pretends to be busy with a flurry of activities that are ultimately meaningless, that lead nowhere, and that contribute nothing to your long-term growth. And what is the most terrifying aspect of this modern affliction? It is that you can go through your entire day, your entire week, even your entire year, believing that you are actively living, when in fact, you are merely drifting, carried along by the currents of digital distraction and unconscious habit. You are on autopilot. And with each day that passes in this state, you grow weaker. Not necessarily in your body, but in the most crucial faculty you possess, your will. Have you ever paused to genuinely wonder why some individuals seem to accomplish an almost superhuman amount in their lives, while you always feel as if you are running out of time? The answer is not that they have been granted a 25th hour in their day. The answer is that they have made a conscious, deliberate decision not to live unconsciously. They have internalized a simple, yet profoundly powerful truth that you may have allowed yourself to forget: no one has time. People simply choose to use their time differently. The laziness that is truly eroding your potential is not measured in the number of hours you rest or sleep. It is measured in the amount of your precious, finite time that you willingly sacrifice to activities that do not make you stronger, and then you compound the error by comforting yourself with the thought, "Well, everyone does it." Consider a student who is attempting to study for an important exam. If they check their phone every 5 minutes, they are not truly studying. They are engaging in an act of self-sabotage. Their study session is no different from a bricklayer who stops every few steps to check his social media feed. How could you ever expect to build a sturdy house with such a fractured and inconsistent effort? You would never even finish laying the foundation. And so it is with your life. Every time you allow yourself to be pulled away by a meaningless distraction, you are actively tearing down the very structure you claim to be building. You do not need an external enemy to sabotage your progress. You are, with great efficiency, doing it to yourself. So, how do you begin to break free from this cycle of self-imposed mediocrity? The Stoic approach is, as always, brutally practical and begins with the smallest possible unit of action. You must learn to break things down. Instead of being paralyzed by the overwhelming thought, I have to write a 10-page research paper, your only task is to open the document and write the first paragraph. Instead of dreading the monumental task of cleaning the entire house, your only job is to stand up and fold the blanket on your bed. When a task appears too large and daunting, the human brain, in an act of self-preservation, will delay it to avoid the feeling of being overwhelmed. But when you break that same task down into small, measurable, and immediately doable actions, you rob your brain of its favorite excuse to resist. Never, ever, underestimate the cumulative power of small, consistent steps. A single brick laid with intention each day can, over time, build a magnificent cathedral. Now, I ask you to pause for a few seconds. Put down your phone. Look around your immediate environment. Is there a task, a responsibility, that you have been putting off for more than 3 days? That is your starting point. That is where you must begin. You do not need a dramatic, life-altering moment of revelation. You simply need to take action. Today. Right now. Seneca, in his Letters on the Shortness of Life, wrote a line that should send a jolt through your system. While we waste our time hesitating and postponing, life is slipping away. Life does not wait for you to feel motivated. It does not pause for you to get it together. It moves on, relentlessly, whether you are ready or not. So, I ask you this, how many more of your precious, unrepeatable days do you plan to live as a carbon copy of yesterday? If you continue on this path, you will eventually be forced to confront a sobering truth. The thing that is truly weakening you is not a lack of ability, or talent, or opportunity. It is permission. You are giving yourself permission to drift. You are giving yourself permission to procrastinate. And you are giving yourself permission to fear that which is uncomfortable, that which requires a small measure of courage, such as conflict. And when we speak of conflict, we are not speaking of picking fights or engaging in aggressive confrontations. We are speaking of the subtle, internal art of learning not to run, of learning not to silence yourself simply to maintain a fragile and artificial peace. That is the 7th door we must now open. And when we do, you will realize that avoidance has never been, and will never be, the path to genuine tranquility. 7. The corrosive nature of conflict avoidance. You walk into your favorite neighborhood cafe. You approach the counter and, in a moment of distraction, you order the wrong drink. A steaming, bitter black coffee is placed before you, instead of the comforting, iced milk coffee that is your usual ritual. You glance at the busy barista, then back at the cup. The words form clearly in your mind, "I'm so sorry, I think I misspoke. I actually ordered an iced coffee." But then, something happens. A wave of social anxiety washes over you. You swallow the words. You force a polite, accommodating smile and say, "Oh, it's fine. I'll drink this." You do not want to cause trouble. You do not want to be a bother. You do not want to be perceived as that difficult customer over something so trivial. And just like that, a simple moment of personal preference becomes a small act of self-betrayal, something to be endured rather than enjoyed. This seemingly insignificant act of conflict avoidance is a microcosm of a much larger, more corrosive pattern. It is not a sign of being easygoing or agreeable. It is a sweet, seductive trap that, over time, molds you into the thinnest, most diluted version of yourself. A version that is always accommodating, always smiling, and always, always, letting others choose for you. And you must understand that with every one of these silent compromises, you are trading a piece of your authenticity for the fleeting comfort of someone else's approval. A single, misplaced, yes, today can be the first link in a chain that leads to a lifetime of quiet, resentful submission. Consider the professional realm. Your boss approaches your desk at 4:55 p.m. on a Friday and hands you a stack of extra work. There is no mention of overtime pay. There is not even a polite inquiry as to whether you have the capacity to take it on. The clear expectation is that you will simply comply. You feel a surge of resentment, of injustice. You want to say, "I'm sorry, but I have plans this evening and I can't take this on right now." But instead, you hear yourself saying, with a strained smile, sure, I can get that done. You do this not because you are a dedicated team player, but because you are terrified that saying no might make you seem uncooperative, might jeopardize your next performance review. You tell yourself that you are keeping the peace, but the reality is that you are allowing your own boundaries to be eroded, bit by painful bit. Stoicism does not advocate for aggression. It does not instruct you to become a combative, argumentative person. It teaches something far more profound and powerful. It teaches you that if something is right, if it aligns with your own inner compass of virtue and justice, then no one on this earth has the right to make you bow your head in silent submission. So, I ask you to engage in another moment of unflinching self-reflection. When someone, either subtly or overtly, crosses a boundary, what is your typical response? Do you hold your ground, meet their eyes, and state your position with calm clarity? Or do you look away, shrink back, and accommodate? And how many times have you walked away from an interaction replaying it in your mind, your thoughts screaming, I should have said something? You do not need to engage in loud, dramatic confrontations to prove that you possess a spine. The cultivation of healthy assertiveness can begin with the smallest of actions. It begins with not saying yes when your entire being is screaming no. It begins with not nodding along with a statement you know to be false, simply because everyone else in the room is doing so. It begins with not dispensing hollow compliments simply because someone in a position of power seems to expect one. The real courage, the courage that the Stoics champion, is the courage to speak and act in accordance with your own truth, especially in a world that has become far too comfortable with pretense and accommodation. I will give you a simple, practical technique to begin this training. The next time you feel yourself about to shrink back, about to say yes when you mean no, I want you to implement the integrity pause. In that moment, ask yourself this question: is my intended action in alignment with my core values? If the answer is a clear and resounding no, then you have your answer. You know what you must do. Your voice may shake. Your palms may sweat. That is to be expected. That feeling of discomfort is simply the sensation of you pushing against the edge of your comfort zone. And you must remember that it is only at that edge, in that space of courageous discomfort, that the real, authentic version of you begins to take shape. And a strange and wonderful thing happens when you stop reflexively backing down. The people in your life who have grown accustomed to your passivity, the ones who do not truly respect you, will often fade away. They will be repelled by your newfound solidity. But the ones who remain, the ones who matter, will begin to see you differently. They will see you as someone who is grounded, someone with a backbone, someone whose yes actually means something because their no is also a possibility. They will see you as someone with a voice. And you will need that voice. You will need that inner strength. Especially when you are confronted by the next silent habit that erodes our self-worth more effectively than any external criticism, the insidious, addictive, and ultimately meaningless habit of comparing yourself to others. But not all comparison is toxic. There is a crucial distinction to be made. Are you looking up to others as a source of inspiration and learning? Or are you, without even realizing it, looking down on yourself? We will dissect this critical difference next. 8. The poisonous game of comparison. You are sitting in your modest Brooklyn rental apartment. You have just finished a simple, solitary dinner of canned spaghetti. The evening is quiet, and for a moment, you feel a sense of contentment. Then, you pick up your phone. You open Instagram. And the first image that greets you is a sun-drenched photograph from a college friend, a friend who is currently checking into a luxury overwater bungalow in the Maldives, accompanied by the caption, "Living my absolute best life." And suddenly, inexplicably, your simple dinner doesn't taste quite as satisfying. Your quiet apartment feels a little smaller, a little lonelier. 5 minutes ago, your reality was perfectly acceptable. Now, it feels painfully inadequate. This is the insidious nature of modern comparison. It is a form of self-inflicted psychological pain, a subtle poison that we administer to ourselves, drop by drop, with every scroll of our thumb. No one teaches us this game, and yet, in the hyper-connected landscape of the 21st century, almost everyone learns to play. At 25, you see your friends starting to buy their first homes, while you are still struggling to pay rent. At 30, they are getting married, having children, and posting photographs of their family vacations, while you are still navigating the complexities of your own single life. By 35, some of them are giving TEDx talks and being featured in industry publications, and you, despite working your hardest, despite making real and tangible progress in your own life, cannot shake the gnawing, persistent feeling that it is somehow not enough. The Stoic philosophers, with their profound understanding of human nature, saw this trap coming over 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius, in his personal journal, pleaded with himself, the tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do. But how, in a practical sense, can we hope to achieve this state of inner peace in an age where everyone is broadcasting a carefully curated highlight reel of their lives, 24/7? Let us examine a concrete example. A young woman in London, driven by a genuine love of literature, decides to start a small YouTube channel. She spends her evenings and weekends passionately crafting thoughtful video essays about her favorite books. Her videos are well researched and beautifully edited, but they only garner a few hundred views. They are, for the most part, unnoticed. Then, one day, she discovers another creator in the same niche, someone with similar content, who has just surpassed 1 million subscribers and landed a lucrative book deal. In that single, heart-sinking moment, all of her own effort, all of the joy that creating those videos once brought her, feels utterly pointless. She forgets why she started. She forgets the intrinsic value of her own work. And that is the real, hidden danger of comparison. It does not just make you feel behind, it actively robs you of the ability to appreciate the unique value and beauty of your own journey. The ultimate irony is that we rarely, if ever, compare the full, unvarnished picture. You might find yourself envying the seemingly perfect physique of an influencer in California, while having no knowledge of their private, grueling battle with an eating disorder. You might admire a friend in Sydney who has just received a major promotion, completely unaware of the devastating toll that their ambition has taken on their family life, of the countless evenings and weekends they have sacrificed, time that they can never get back. Comparison is like attempting to judge the entirety of a novel by its glossy, well-designed cover, while willfully forgetting that every single person is writing a completely different story, in a completely different genre. If you are serious about breaking free from this toxic, self-defeating cycle, I offer you a simple, yet powerful, technique. The very next time you catch yourself feeling that familiar pang of inadequacy after scrolling through your social media feed, I want you to perform a pattern interrupt. Get up, put your phone down, and do one small, tangible thing that is within your immediate control. Wash the dishes that have been sitting in the sink. Fold the laundry that has been waiting in the basket. Write 3 sentences in your journal. These small, deliberate actions hold a quiet, grounding power. They physically pull you out of the disembodied, illusory world of comparison and return you to the concrete, tactile reality of your own life, which is the only place where real change can ever occur. Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher who stood on the shoulders of the Stoics, once wrote a line that is both haunting and liberating: to become what you are, you must not have the faintest idea what you are. You cannot hope to become the most authentic, fully realized version of yourself while you are constantly, obsessively, trying to become someone else. So, if today you are feeling that you are falling behind, I want you to remember this: a slow and steady pace on your own path is infinitely superior to a frantic, hurried pace in a race that was never yours to run. You do not need to win anyone else's game. You simply need to stay true to your own. Now, I invite you to pause and reflect. When was the last time you felt not good enough? What was the specific trigger? If you feel open to it, I encourage you to share your experience in the comments below. Your story of struggle, and your commitment to overcoming it, may not only help to solidify your own resolve, but it may also be the very thing that someone else out there needs to read today to feel seen, to feel understood, and to feel a little less alone on their own journey. 9. The tyranny of unchecked desire. Have you ever found yourself standing in front of your refrigerator late at night, the cold light illuminating your face, opening and closing the door repeatedly, even though you are not genuinely hungry? Or perhaps you have made a firm promise to yourself, just 5 more minutes on YouTube, only to look up at the clock and realize, with a jolt of self-loathing, that 3 hours have vanished, and your important work remains untouched. These moments, on the surface, seem trivial, harmless, the small, forgivable weaknesses of modern life. But if you listen closely, they are telling you something of profound importance. They are screaming a loud and clear message: you are losing the war for control of your own impulses. You are becoming a slave to your fleeting urges. And each time you surrender, each time you give in, you become a little weaker, a little more fragmented, without even noticing the slow, methodical erosion of your own will. Losing control over your impulses does not always manifest in dramatic, life-altering failures. More often, it is a quiet, creeping sickness. It is the reflexive click on the "next episode" button on Netflix, even when you know you have an important meeting at 8 a.m. the next morning. It is the act of reaching for another cookie, not out of hunger, but out of a vague sense of boredom or anxiety. It is the familiar, comforting mantra of "I'll start tomorrow," when you know, with absolute certainty, that you should be at the gym today. These small, seemingly insignificant decisions are the real traps, precisely because of their frequency. They occur every single day, silently, methodically, grinding down your willpower like water dripping on a stone. They leave no visible scars, but over time, they carve a deep and hollow space within you. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, provided the antidote: you must build up your life action by action, and be content if each one achieves its goal as far as possible. Your life is not transformed in a single, explosive moment of change. It is transformed in the quiet, unglamorous, and often difficult discipline of choosing no when the siren song of immediate gratification calls your name. But it is one thing to state this principle. It is another thing entirely to live it. How, in a practical sense, do you begin to master your own impulses? I offer you a simple, yet profoundly effective, technique. Let us call it the 30-second rule. The next time you feel a strong urge to do something you know you shouldn't, to check your social media, to eat the junk food, to procrastinate on your work, I want you to pause. And in that pause, I want you to mentally count to 30. Count slowly. Count steadily. Do nothing else. In that short, 30-second window, you are doing something that most people in the modern world are completely incapable of doing. You are breaking the spell of autopilot. You are inserting a moment of conscious awareness between the stimulus and the response. You are, in a very real sense, taking the steering wheel back from your unconscious habits. That is the precise moment where you begin to grow stronger. There is a line in the Christian scriptures, in the Gospel of John, that is deeply resonant with Stoic thought: whosoever committeth sin is the servant of sin. The person who repeatedly engages in a destructive act becomes, over time, a slave to that act. And so it is with our unchecked desires. When you repeatedly give in to an impulse, you are no longer the one who is choosing. You are being led. You are being pulled. And the great danger is that you are being pulled away from the person you are actively trying to become. Ask yourself this honest question: if you continue to live your life by chasing every fleeting whim, every transient desire, can you ever hope to build anything of lasting value? Can you build a healthy body? A clear and focused mind? A career that you are genuinely proud of? The answer is a clear and unequivocal no. All of these things require discipline. And discipline, at its core, begins with the courageous act of saying no to what you want in this moment, in order to protect and nurture what you want most in the long term. And if you are unsure which of your desires is derailing you the most, you need only pay closer attention to the path you are currently on. Because when desire takes the reins, it does not just pull you slightly off course. It has the power to carry you away entirely, away from the goals you have not yet fully articulated, away from the life you have not yet had the courage to claim. And this leads us to the final, and perhaps most tragic, of all weakening habits. It is not just losing control. It is forgetting what control even means in the first place. 10. The quiet desperation of a directionless life. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with physical labor or mental exertion. It is the deep, soul-wearying exhaustion that comes from living day after day without a clear and compelling sense of why. Have you ever felt this? You wake up in the morning, and before your feet even touch the floor, your hand reflexively reaches for your phone. You scroll through a disorienting stream of other people's news, other people's opinions, other people's lives. Then, you rush to get ready for a job that, if you were being honest, does not truly ignite your spirit. After work, you eat a meal, often while distracted by a screen. You scroll some more, you watch something to unwind, and then you go to sleep, only to repeat the entire cycle the next day. Life is moving, and it is moving fast. But inside, you feel a profound sense of emptiness, a feeling that you are running at full speed on a treadmill, going absolutely nowhere. The great danger of this aimless routine is its very normality. It hides in plain sight. It wears the convincing mask of being busy. You are constantly replying to emails. You are diligently chasing other people's deadlines. You are binge-watching the latest series to stay culturally relevant. You are showing up to social events on the weekends to maintain your connections. But if you were to pause and conduct a fearless inventory of your time, you would be forced to ask yourself a difficult question: how many of these activities are a genuine, conscious choice? How many of them are actively moving you, inch by inch, closer to the person you truly want to become? When an individual lacks a clear, self-defined goal, it is almost inevitable that they will be swept up in the currents of other people's agendas. You begin to live your life like a dry leaf in the wind, blown about by the prevailing trends and the expectations of your social circle. One day, your friend starts passionately investing in cryptocurrency, and you think, maybe I should get into that. You open an account, you make a few trades, but your heart isn't really in it. The next week, everyone in your feed seems to be launching a podcast, and you think to yourself, maybe that's what I should be doing. And so it goes. Each month, each year, pulls you in a different direction. You are perpetually busy, you are perpetually exploring your options, but nothing of substance ever truly takes root. I offer you a simple, yet profoundly clarifying, thought experiment. Imagine, for a moment, that you were given a definitive diagnosis: you have exactly 1 year left to live. Now, with that stark reality in mind, ask yourself, what would I choose to spend my precious, finite time on, every single day? Be brutally honest with yourself. The answer will almost certainly not be scrolling through TikTok for 30 more minutes or replying to every email within 5 minutes of its arrival. The answer, if you listen closely, will be something deeper. Something more real. And it is from that deep, authentic place that your true goals should begin to emerge. And please, do not confuse the idea of a goal with some grand, earth-shattering achievement. You do not need to set a goal to become a wildly successful billionaire or to win a Nobel Prize. A meaningful goal can be as simple, as humble, and as powerful as this: I will wake up 30 minutes earlier each morning to read a book. Or, I will call my elderly parents once a week, without fail. Or, I will write one honest reflection about my life, for my eyes only, at the end of each month. These small, consistent actions, when performed with intention, are the building blocks of a life that feels solid, a life that feels meaningful, a life that feels like your own. Now, I invite you to take a moment to reflect on the day you have just lived. Did you do a single thing that was a genuine investment in the future you claim to want? Or were you, for the most part, simply reacting to whatever came your way, living, in essence, someone else's life, according to someone else's priorities? If you feel that you have been drifting, that is not a cause for despair. It is a call to action. It is time to drop anchor. It is time to set a goal. It does not have to be a perfect goal. It simply has to be clear. Because when you know where you are going, each step you take, no matter how small, feels steadier, more purposeful. And then, a strange and beautiful thing begins to happen. Your life, which once felt so random and chaotic, begins to take shape. It begins to have a narrative, a direction, a meaning. But it all starts with a single, courageous decision, the decision that today will no longer be just another unconscious repeat of yesterday. We have journeyed together through the shadowy landscape of the 10 silent habits that, with a slow and patient violence, weaken the human spirit. We have held them up to the light, not with a spirit of condemnation, but with the clear, unflinching gaze of a Stoic philosopher. From the subtle poison of mockery and the self-imposed prison of blame, to the corrosive nature of conflict avoidance and the quiet desperation of a directionless life, these patterns are not dramatic, singular events. They are the small, repeated cuts, the tiny acts of self-betrayal that, over time, bleed us of our strength, our focus, and our connection to our own authentic selves. They are the architects of a life lived at half-mast, a life that is busy but not meaningful, active but not purposeful. But I want you to remember this, and to hold it close to your heart: you are not a helpless victim of your habits. You are their author. And at any moment, you possess the sovereign power to choose to write a different story. You can choose to keep them, to allow them to continue their silent work of erosion, or you can choose, with courage and with clarity, to let them go. Stoicism does not promise you an easy life. It does not offer a world free from chaos, from injustice, or from pain. It offers something far more valuable. It offers you the tools, the mindset, and the unwavering conviction that amidst the inevitable chaos, you still retain ultimate control over the one thing that truly matters: how you choose to live, how you choose to think, and how you choose to respond. You have the power to start over. And you do not need to wait for the perfect moment, for a new year, for a new job, or for a new relationship. The perfect moment is now. It is this breath. It is this heartbeat. It begins with a single, clear, and unshakable decision. If this journey we have taken together has spoken to something deep within you, if it has ignited a spark of recognition or a desire for change, I invite you to make a small, yet significant, commitment. Like this video. Do it not for the sake of an algorithm, but as a quiet, personal declaration to yourself, a way of saying, I am ready to change. If you are ready to continue walking this path, to keep exploring the timeless wisdom of Stoicism and how it can be applied to the challenges of our modern lives, I invite you to subscribe to the BAudio channel. There is no pressure, no rush. Simply an open invitation to return to this space whenever you need a reminder to live with more clarity, more purpose, and more resilience. And finally, I want to hear from you. Which of these 10 habits resonated most deeply with you? Where do you feel the most stuck? Share your story, your struggles, and your commitments in the comments below. Your honesty and your vulnerability may be the very thing that someone else needs to read today to feel a little less alone on their own path. Thank you for your time, for your attention, and for being a part of this journey. The war against a half-lived life is not won in a single day. It is won in the small, courageous choices we make, moment by moment. Let us continue to fight the good fight, together.